powerful characters, to engage them, to teach them, to model behaviors and attitudes is so very important.
And the question is to averting a crisis in terms of a lost generation. What's the most important thing that these children need, these displaced children, these refugee children?
The way I would put it is a dose of normality. Even in the midst of terrible chaos, I've seen in tents that are run by IRC staff around the world in Lebanon, Jordan, but also across Africa, even in clearings, the dose of normality that says there's a teacher, there's a class, there's some paper, there's some crayons. If it's then enlivened by friends like Elmo, you're really in business. But that's what children are robbed of. In the middle of war, in the middle of persecution, they see unspeakable violence, and there is no normality, and the danger is that violence becomes the normality. And if we can give them a dose of love and care and support, and, as I say, the normality that we believe, then we can try and stave off some of the damage that they are suffering. Because be under no illusions, it is right to talk about a lost generation, it is right to talk about long-term damage, and it's right also to talk about the power of interventions to help kids bounce back, because the resilience is as strong as the carnage that you see around.
Children are remarkably resilient. They're given a chance to learn, to play, to enjoy. And one of the things that's really important about this partnership is we will use what people think of as Sesame Street in terms of broadcast, multimedia, digital, Facebook, WhatsApp. But working with the IRC, we will also be creating content that is for much more direct.
Quit that was the end of it. That's just simply amazes me. Okay, they're sitting there pushing all this Russia bull on us. Not only the mainstream media, but over half of your senators, probably about half of your congressmen, and it's all a big bald-faced lie. You sit right there and heard the folks over at CNN tell you that it was manufactured, fabricated, bull, SH, upside down exclamation mark T. Okay, that's what it is. That's what I've told you ever since day one. Personally, I didn't need no Project Veritas to tell me that. But, it doesn't hurt to have a little proof every once in a while when you go around making wild accusations, So, I don't know. How they keep getting by with this. In fact, if I had the money, I would hire a lawyer myself. I would sue them. That's why, folks, that the survival of this show is so important. So you have somebody fighting for you. So, because the more listeners, the more viewers that I reach, the more people that you reach. Okay, the more like-minded people that call into this show and express their views and opinions with one another, and maybe plug their links or whatever, that gives them the opportunity to connect. That gives me the opportunity to connect. Folks, this is a win-win. I mean, how can you go wrong with supporting this broadcast? I mean, I'll admit, I don't know how good that website's working. Like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, I made it myself, but I mean, really, if anybody wants to send me $2, $3, $4, $1, you're more than welcome to. But if anybody wants to get serious and donate me like $40 minimum, I will send you a t-shirt. Um, I've got them ordered. They should be here within the next week or so. They cost me $35 a piece, and I guarantee you that everyone on your block will want one, okay? Or everybody in your holler, just, yeah. Everywhere you go, they're gonna want a shirt like this, okay? Now, I'm gonna go ahead and read this email from Senate Mitch McConnell. I'll be honest with you. I knew that McConnell was a shady guy, but I kind of trusted him anyway. Like, I never saw any reason not to trust this guy. Well, one thing, one thing that jumps out at me though about him. I read an article about a year or so ago about Mr. McConnell and his his wife, like she she's related to the Colombians, and it's the ones who run the cartel. Well, he has a boat. It's like one of the ones that haul spray or whatever, the big container ships. And there was marijuana and cocaine found on it. And it was linked to Mr. McConnell. It came from Colombia. But don't take my word for it. Go look it up if you don't believe me. No reason to lie. But, whatever. So, without further ado, y'all, go ahead and read this to y'all. Let me find it. It'll take me a second to find it. I had to play my little drum roll. I can't find it in my email. I got another copy of it though, which I posted to my Facebook this afternoon. Can't figure out why I can't find it in my email. Let me look one more time. Let it reload here. Let's see. it's not their fault. I'm so sorry for this delay. Give me just a second here. I'll get it for you. Here it is. So looks like we're loading. Might help if I restarted every once in a while. Okay, here we go, finally. Dear Mr. Morgan, thank you for contacting me. Hearing from you, well, hold on, let me go back in time about 2 months, I guess. Back when I first started this show, I think I was like telling all of you that we need to contact our congressmen and senators, state representatives, and tell them that we wanted this Russia narrative shut down in its tracks, because it's a big lie. They're doing nothing but trying to dethrone Trump, if you will. They're using it to investigate Trump, which I have a video I'm going to play here in a minute if I don't forget. Folks, I have so much on my mind, I forget a lot of times. If there's something that I mention in the description and don't cover, it's because I have 10 million things running through my mind at any given time. But anyway, yeah, I was contacting my state legislators and senators and whatnot, and this is the response I got back from Mr. McConnell 2 months later. It says, Dear Mr. Morgan, thank you for contacting me. Hearing from you helps me better represent Kentucky in the United States Senate. As you may know, our national intelligence community has unanimously agreed that the Russian government attempted to influence and undermine the 2016 presidential election, which included targeted cyber attacks on both U.S. political parties. Though there is no evidence that Russia's action influenced the outcome of the election, any foreign breach of our democratic processes is deeply disturbing and requires a thorough investigation. 2 investigations of this matter are already taking place in the U.S. Senate. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence is undertaking a review of the full scope of Russian intelligence activities related to the election and will produce reports of its findings. The Senate Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism is also conducting an independent review, which has included a hearing on May 8, 2017 that was open to the public. In addition, there are several efforts outside the U.S. Senate to investigate Russian intervention into the 2016 U.S. presidential election. the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and the House Oversight Committee and Government Reform Committee, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence are each reviewing these events. Furthermore, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Department of Homeland Security are each investigating various aspects of Russia's involvement in our election. Finally, as you may know, the Deputy Attorney recently appointed Robert Mueller as a special counsel to conduct an independent investigation into this matter. I believe that there are numerous inquiries have the resources and capabilities to ensure that the American public will be well informed about issues related to Russia's intervention in our democracy. It is abundantly clear that the Russians are not our friends and that they will continue seeking to undermine our nation and its interests. For this reason, I was pleased to vote for an amendment to the Countering Iran's Destabilizing Activities Act of 2017 that would levy additional sanctions against the Russian Federation. In particular, this amendment would impose sanctions on individuals found to be conducting cyber attacks on behalf of the Russian Federation and ensure Congress has a voice in any effort to roll back sanctions on Russia. The bill with this amendment overwhelmingly passed the Senate on June 15, 2017. As the 115th Congress reviews Russian actions against networks associated with the U.S. presidential election, I can assure you that we will continue to work to assure any attack against the United States is met with an appropriate response. Again, thank you for contacting me about this important national security matter. If you would like to receive periodic updates from my office, please sign up for my newsletter at www.mcconnell.senate.gov. Become a fan of my Facebook page by visiting www.facebook.com/MitchMcConnell or follow my office on Twitter at McConnell Press. Sincerely, Mitch McConnell, United States Senator. And that's it, folks. Yep. Listen. There's been so many accusations made that this really does need looked into. I'll just be honest with you. But what they're going to do is they're going to find some reason to impeach Trump, more than likely, and that's exactly what they're intending on doing. They want to destroy him. They want to destroy this country. They want to destroy us. They want to destroy your children. They want to sexualize them. They want to sexually confuse them. They want to educate them about fake history. Okay. Yeah, like a lot of what's in the history books is not 100% accurate. Is not 20% accurate. Some of it is not 1% accurate, actually. It's just these so-called facts. Facts, as you call them. Quote, facts, Yeah. And, when the teacher gives you a test and you don't give them the answer which they expect you to give them, whether it is the right answer or the wrong answer, you'll lose points on that test. You know, I don't know. I don't know what they got on their mind. I really don't. Who wants to destroy kids? Who wants to sexualize a child?
This is Robert Kiyosaki for Infowars.com.
Billy Weaver reporting for Infowars.com. We're here in Bozeman, Montana at the Red Pill Expo with a very special person. Now, he was one of the speakers. This is Robert Kiyosaki. Now, Robert, you did a great job on your speech, but I really have been dying to ask you, what advice would you give to millennials that are struggling financially?
Well, I always ask people, what did you learn about money in school? And for the answer for most people, it's nothing. They've all learned economics, balance a checkbook, but that's really not money. And the reason they don't learn about money is because the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is my poor dad was a PhD. It stands for poor, helpless, and desperate. No, it's a good man. But as you know, they don't learn much about money. As my father knew nothing about money. And that's the problem. It's all these academic elites, like Obama and Hillary and those guys. They run the country, no financial education.
Well, I have always found it so bizarre that in school they don't even teach people how to do their taxes yet. I mean, you should know something about taxes because as an American you're required to at least file taxes for the most part. But, Robert is the author of many books. Can you tell us about some of your books?
Well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is he was on the New York Times bestseller list for almost 7 years, plus 3 other books, so it was four in the top 10. And I flunked out of school because I can't write. I'll mention that. But anyway, they yanked it because they didn't like a capitalist book being on their bestseller list. But if you look at Publishers Weekly, my book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is still number 3 to number 1. But the New York Times will not recognize it. And I think that's kind of telling about the media and what's really going on, is because most journalists are like my poor dad, very smart people. I think they mean well, but without financial education, they have to take a point of view that the rich are evil and greedy. The rich don't pay taxes. And America was born as a tax-free nation. And now they think paying taxes is patriotic. So, our problem is our leaders have no financial education. Quite broke.
Do you think that a lot of the reason so many wealthy business people like Donald Trump, that they're not paying taxes? Well, I know you showed that amazing model and how there's sides and they're thinking obviously on a different level, but do you think that it could be partially because they have the means to hire tax attorneys and accountants and people that are so aware of all of this?
Absolutely. Business is a team sport. In school, I was a C student, and I always sat next to the A student. That's called cheating in school. But in the business world, that's called smart business procedure. So I hear people complain about the bureaucrats. My poor dad, most of my family are bureaucrats, highly educated bureaucrats. And they complain about it. And any businessman can kick their butt financially, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I hear somebody complaining about the bureaucrats, I'm going, boy, you must be Pee Wee Herman or a wimp or something. So when I go into a meeting with the IRS, I just go with my accountants and my attorneys. And we have a nice discussion on tax law. And that's how I got smarter as an entrepreneur, because I'm not a very smart guy, I'm academic. But I go with my accountants and my attorneys educate me, and they're not mean, they're smart, they're tough, they know what they're talking about. So that's how I got smarter. Now, if you're an employee, you don't need accountants and attorneys because there's nothing an accountant and attorney can do you for taxes. You get, I think, a W-2 or something, and, you wonder where the money went every time you look at your paycheck. And an accountant can't help you. So that's why going to school and getting a job, from a financial point of view, is really bad advice.
Well, we've seen how a lot of these college kids, they're taking out these huge loans to go to school, and then we're seeing how their degrees are being lower and lower valued as more and more people get them because they can all get access to these loans. What do you think about that situation? What would you advise students thinking about going and taking out a big college loan?
Well, as I always say, there's good debt and bad debt. And good debt is debt that makes you richer, and bad debt is debt that makes you poor. Like you buy a house, it's bad debt. Credit card debt is generally bad debt. Car is bad debt. Whereas if I borrow money to buy real estate, it makes me rich. So that's good debt. So if a kid goes into school, they take out the student loans, and they thriddle it away, and then they don't graduate, that's when that student loan becomes an albatross around their neck. So before a student takes out a student loan, they better be really sure they want to graduate. Because if they don't graduate, graduation doesn't save you, but you're a little better off if you drop out and finish. That's the tragedy.
So it really is a huge risk to take out a student loan. And we're seeing a lot of these millennials falling into that, and now we see them thinking about communism. What would you say to people thinking that communism is the solution for how things are in America right now?
Well, I'm afraid because there's little financial education, people don't know what a communist is. See, most people who work for the government who believe in equality or for everybody, which is noble, it's noble. You want everybody to share the wealth, and everybody should have equal, that's communism. But it actually comes from the heart. And they don't know what communism is. And we have more communists in government and in the school system, good people, but they don't know they're communists.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're just good people. My whole family leaned left. They're good people. They don't understand why I have hundreds of millions of dollars. Everybody else is starving. Well, it's a different education. So they want me to share my wealth, which is communism. They want me to give, take from the rich and give to the poor. That's communism. If you support that, that's fine, but I'm a former U.S. Marine, 2 tours in Vietnam. I didn't fight for communism. I fought for capitalism. That's the difference.
And we've seen how Donald Trump obviously has the rich dad mentality. I mean, he is so successful, and he's a very savvy businessman, and I think that's why a lot of people were so curious to see how he would do as the president, to see, let's see if a businessman can actually do a better job running the country than a politician or a bureaucrat, so to speak. So you said you know President Trump, and it seems like you knew him pretty well. What can you tell us about him?
Well, first of all, he and I wrote 2 books together. I'm the only other person that shared the cover, and we're supposed to write the 3rd book, except today it's time to write the 3rd book. He goes, I'm sorry, I'm running for office. I said, good luck. No, he is a fantastic man. You look at the man through his children. His children are magnificent. And they're fantastically, they're polished, smart, savvy, well-disciplined. But in dealing with Donald, he's straight, he listens, makes a decision quickly. And I think that's his Achilles heel. Because bureaucrats, all they want is to keep their job. They're not here to get the job done. So I feel for my friend Donald. He's a great man. He has the same disease I have, foot and mouth. Or tweet and mouth, whatever you want to call it. But, And I'm so politically incorrect that that's what he is, and it's unfortunate, you know. Everybody says, well, stop tweeting. It's like, well, it's Donald. And people look at it as what, Ed Kufufu or something he wrote, he tweeted. At the same time, he went to NATO, and he said to NATO, pay up. You guys are not paying your bills. Then he went to Saudi Arabia and says, let's kick ISIS's butt, you know. That's the kind of leader he is, but the press never covers that. And what people don't cover is that, and I'm not Republican or Democrat, I rather stay neutral. President Obama was a fellow Hawaiian, or maybe from Argentina, or where else he could be from. South America? No, he's in Africa, that's right. But anyway, he gave Iran $150 billion.
He did.
Iran is the biggest exporter of terrorism in the world, next to Qatar. Then he released those Guantanamo guys, and he says, I want you boys to be good boys now, and you promise not to be terrorists anymore. Oh, yes, President Obama, we promise. And they all run to Qatar, and they were in action that afternoon. You know what I mean? And we're after Trump for firing the FBI director, and we all know the FBI is a little tainted also. The CIA, I mean, I know a little bit about the CIA because as a Marine pilot, I was recruited by them to fly trucks.
Fly
I don't
drugs.
do drugs, I'm pretty straight. So anyway, our whole system is suspect right now. It's all these bureaucrats and people with their hands in the pot. You know, the question I ask all over the world, it's all over the world, why does a politician go into office poor? Are they rich? How does that happen? That's corruption. But nobody says anything about that. They get Trump for some goofy thing, you know? And the trouble with the special prosecutor, because I know, because I've had one of them on my butt, this is the thing I'm afraid of, because Trump's my friend. They'll find something.
That's what I
You
just
know,
said.
I was guilty. I got accused of in the Marine Corps. And they came and they started turning over the rocks. Oh my God. Because all the things I did, I thought I got away with. I didn't get away with. I just pled guilty and just got off, you know. I was never, they let everything go. But my concern for my friend, the president, is they're going to find something. It doesn't make a difference what they find. They will find something.
Well, you know, that's why typically we don't allow fishing expeditions in our justice system, but of course they're going to try and dig and dig and dig, try to illegally survey him, and so on and so forth, and we have already seen what happened with Michael Flynn, so I'm sure we'll see more, but, you know, overall, if you just have one more thing to say about the Red Pill Expo, and what you would advise other Americans out there to do to wake up and red pill their friends, what would you say to them?
Well, I thought it was funny, the local media here in Bozeman calls us a white supremacist meeting. I'm not white. I had to crack up, you know. I mean, they just label us. But anyway, the Red Pill Expo was for out-of-the-box thinking. I came here as a participant as well as a speaker because I need new ideas. I need some out-of-the-box ideas. And that's why I come to the Red Pill Expo. You come for the out-of-the-box ideas, because that's what we need today. Today, America's in serious, serious, serious trouble. And all of us need to be more vigilant, not less vigilant.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, and we all really enjoyed your speech, so thank you so much for giving us this time.
And thank you to InfoWorld, because you guys are doing a great job.
That was Millie Weaver and Robert Kiyosaki. He was a whistleblower, former CIA agent who flew drugs for the CIA, you know. But, yeah. Bernie Sanders, he finally made some statements on the record after it was announced that there's been an FBI investigation launched into him and his wife.
Refused multiple times to answer questions from Fox News Senate producer Kara Rowland about the FBI investigation that has reportedly come to focus on Sanders' wife, Jane. Where are you from?
You're second low here, folks. I'm sorry. I really apologize.
Fox News. CBS is reporting on this. Politico is reporting on this. Do you still believe it's politically motivated, sir?
Well, I'm glad that you're interested in the fact that the Republican leadership is proposing legislation which would throw millions of people off of health insurance. The case centers on Jane Sanders' tenure as president of Vermont's Burlington College from 2004 to 2011, and a loan application she filed in 2010 to help the school expand. Published reports allege Sanders claimed $2.6 million in pledges, but as the college spiraled into bankruptcy, Sanders reportedly raised less than $700,000, leading the Trump campaign chair in Vermont, Brady Tunsing, to ask federal prosecutors and banking regulators to investigate what he termed apparent federal bank fraud.
I have seen public records documents that show that an investigation has been started. Those records were with the Vermont Department of Education, where the U.S. prosecutors were asking the Department of Education to preserve records as part of their investigation.
Senator Sanders' campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, did not respond to Fox News' request for comment, but he told Politico the couple has hired Richard Cassidy, a well-regarded Vermont lawyer and Sanders superdelegate, and Lawrence Robbins, a Washington attorney whose clients have included Scooter Libby, the chief of staff to Vice President Cheney, who was convicted in the Valerie Plame case. Democratic Party activists discounted the case hurting Senator Sanders politically, at least for now.
He's going to get a big benefit of the doubt, particularly with his supporters.
Senator Sanders' Senate staff did not respond to multiple requests for comment either. Asked about this case by a local Vermont reporter last month, the senator called it nonsense and noted
Hold on, we'll listen to Kyle Rove here in just a moment. I got another video here, Bernie in it, I wanted to play.
Now, the independent senator from Vermont and former Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. Senator, good to have you with me.
Good to be with you.
Graham Paul, some of his arguments, he says insurance is too expensive.
Well, I also heard, Aaron, if my earpiece was correct, I heard him talk about gulags. I live 50 miles away from Canada, where they managed to guarantee health care to all people at a far lower cost per capita. We have national health care throughout every major country in Europe, the UK, Germany. Not quite sure that they are gulags. The truth is that the United States of America today is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, and we end up spending far, far more per capita on health care and prescription drugs.
So when it comes to Senator Paul, I was curious if you actually agreed with him on something here, which is the point that he made that insurance is too expensive. This bill, as it is constructed, the GOP bill that is now not getting voted on, he says it would bail out the big insurers. It sounded to me like you and he would actually fully agree on those points.
Well, I'm not quite sure that we would. Of course, we are the only major country on earth that allows for-profit private insurance companies to make huge profits. We allow drug companies to make incredible profits, and we've got to deal with that. But the bottom line is getting back to this legislation. What this legislation was about that the Republicans today couldn't get the votes for, it would have thrown 22 million people, mostly lower-income people, off of health insurance. These are people with cancer, with diabetes, with heart disease, children with disabilities.
bill would have substantially raised premiums for older workers. You're 62 years of age, you're making $45,000 a year. Would a defunded Planned Parenthood, massive cuts in Medicaid, which impact people in nursing homes. So, this was a disaster, and I'm glad at least temporarily the American people were able to defeat it.
I'm going to come back to your use of the word disaster, but first let me just ask you this, because when you said the 22 million people being thrown off, you know, the CBO does say up to 15 million of those could be people who choose to not have health insurance because they're no longer charged a penalty to do so. So that's very different than being thrown off.
Aaron, no, not really. I mean, again, we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people. So if you're 21 years of age and you're feeling great today and you walk out and you're getting hit by a bus, well, you know what? You made a bad choice by not getting health care. Health care is a right, not a privilege. Everybody can get sick. Everybody can have an accident. Everybody in America should have health care, in my view.
So you refer to the GOP bill as a disaster. I want to get back to that word because the president today met with Republican senators to try to get them on board. Obviously wasn't successful at that, but he also used the word disaster to refer to a different health care bill. Here's the president.
We have really no choice but to solve this situation. Obamacare is a total disaster. It's melting down as we speak.
It's an oft-used word these days. But look, here's the point, Senator Wright. Premiums up by an average of 25% in the 39 states that use the marketplace. Doesn't the president have a point?
Well, first of all, if you ask many of the leading insurance companies, what they will tell you is that one of the reasons that premiums are going up as fast as they are has to do with the fact that the Trump administration is sabotaging Obamacare in terms of hesitating on cost sharing and on individual mandates. So less money is coming into the system.
But to be fair, they were going up before Trump won.
They were. Fair enough.
So.
Look. I voted for the Affordable Care Act. It has brought 20 million more people into the ranks of the insured. It has dealt with the issue of the obscenity of pre-existing conditions, etc., etc. But Aaron, if your question to me is, do we need to significantly improve the Affordable Care Act? The answer is absolutely. But you don't do that by giving $500 billion in tax breaks to the top 2% and massive tax breaks to the insurance companies and the drug companies. What the Republicans have proposed is not a cure, an improvement over Obamacare. It is a massive tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country.
So when you say that you know that there do need to be changes, though, the Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, he was asked today if he would involve you, Democrats, in the health care talks, and here's how he responded.
Your ongoing discussions involve Democrats?
They're not interested in participating in this.
Are you part of the problem?
Look, Aaron, this McConnell, Senator McConnell, has guided this whole approach without holding one hearing. I'm a member of the Health Education Committee. There have been 0 hearings for legislation which will impact 1/6 of the American economy and every single person in this country. Of course, we want to be involved in the discussion as to how you improve the Affordable Care Act, not how you throw millions off it and give tax breaks to the rich. All right? One of the things that you can do is lower the age of Medicare. Right now it's 65. You bring it down to 55. It's going to solve a whole lot of problems for older workers. Second thing you could do, in states where there is not a lot of competition, you can have a public option. You can make something like a Medicare plan or a Medicaid plan available to everybody at a reasonable cost. Third thing you could do to save a whole lot of money is to lower the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs in this country right now by allowing pharmacists and distributors to buy lower cost prescription drugs from Canada and in other countries, substantially lowering the cost of prescription drugs and healthcare in America. So, of course, we would like to be involved, but not to throw people off health insurance and give tax breaks to billionaires, but in fact to deal with the problems of Obamacare, which the deductibles are too high, premiums, co-payments are too high. Let's address that.
Senator, before we go, just one other question. We understand your wife has hired a lawyer to represent her in a possible probe into a land deal that fell apart. This was back when she was president of Burlington College.
No, what's not when she was... let me say a word on that.
Yeah, well, I just want to ask you, do you know she's under FBI investigation?
Excuse me. My wife is about the most honest person I know. When she came to that college, it was failing financially and academically. When she left it, it was in better shape than it ever did. 5 years later, just at the moment, coincidentally, no doubt, when I'm a candidate for President of the United States, Donald Trump's campaign manager, a vice chairman of the Republican Party in Vermont, launched this investigation. So all that I will tell you now, Erin, it is a sad state of affairs in America. Not only when we have, politicians being destroyed, when there are attacks against elected officials, when you go after your wife, people's wives, that is pretty pathetic. And that's where we are right now. That's about all that I'm going to say.
I do just want to understand, though, at this time, do you have any knowledge as to whether she's under FBI investigation?
That's all that I want to say, and we'll let it play out. But I think it's fairly pathetic that when, people are involved in public life, it's not only that they get attacked, but it's their wives and their families that get attacked. That's what this is about.
Senator Sanders, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, that's pretty pathetic, old feller. It sure is. I talk about somebody attacking somebody.
Back to President George W. Bush and Contributor Rick Carl, good evening. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but I'll let you weigh in on what many people see as very interesting.
Well, it sounds a little sneaky. In 2004, Mrs. Sanders takes over a very small college in Burlington. By 2006, she announces with 156 students at the college that she's going to undertake a $6 million effort to grow the campus materialized. She had the fact in 2010, she announces that she's going to move the college from downtown Burlington, 3 acres, right on the lakefront north of town, that she's going to buy from the Catholic Church for $10 million. She gets $6.5 million borrowed from a state agency, $6.5 million from the Union People's Bank, gets a nearly $4 million second mortgage from the Catholic Church, and she does this by saying that she had $5 million in likely donors and $2.4 million in sure donors, and it turns out that the records of the college show that she had less than $700,000 in contribution from all sources during the time that she claimed that she had $7.5 million ready to go. In fact, several of the people who had pledged money, the largest single donor said, I will give the college $1 million upon my death, and they counted that as coming in the door very soon in increments. And the woman, when confronted with what Jane Sanders was saying about it, said, that's simply not true. I never made that promise. They asked me to sign some papers, which I refused to sign, and I was going to give them the money upon my death. So we have Bernie Sanders in trouble because the allegation is that he interceded with the officials of the Union, the People's United Bank, in order to get the loan. And Jane Sanders is under the microscope because she apparently lied on the documents both to a state agency and to a federally chartered bank.
So we have Bernie Sanders, who is a man of the people. He nearly became the Democrats' nominee last time around. I mean, he won 20+ of contests, of the primary contest, and he's preached continually against the wealthy. You heard him in the sound bites there. We know he owns 2 or 3 houses. I mean, he's done pretty well. But yet he continues to connect with young people and others who are disaffected who say he is fighting for us.
Yeah. Well, look, they forced his wife out as president of the university, and a few years later, burned by all this debt that she had run up, it went bankrupt. It no longer exists. But she left with a $200,000 package, severance package, and she was paid $150,000 a year at the beginning when they had 156 students. Virtually every one of those students paid $1,000 in tuition in order to pay her salary, and she was just one of a number of officials and teachers with the college. So look, we don't know where this is going to go, but to dismiss this by saying these issues were raised by a respected lawyer who happened to be the Trump state chairman, I think is disingenuous on the part of Senator Sanders.
Well, there is definitely that political angle to this. So we'll now watch as everybody gets their day in court and a chance to defend and explain their actions. Karl Rove, thank you very much.
Charles Krauthammer is considered...
No, we won't. don't play that. No, no, no. We will let all the millionaires and the billionaires go this morning. NBC is calling for Trump to
My opinions was that nepotism is a bad thing in government. It just is. You put Uday and Kusei in your government, and you're going to have a problem with everybody else in the government because nobody can fight with them. Nobody can challenge them. In the end, the son-in-law is always right because he always can go to his father-in-law or his wife and say, they were mean to me. The power seems to have gone to the son-in-law. This is the Romanovs. Just a thought. The Romanovs. Is it? And then you find out in all these investigations that Jared was opening up a tunnel to Moscow so that he wouldn't have to deal with the State Department. So the son-in-law, you know, one good thing Mussolini did was execute his son-in-law. I mean, I'm sorry, Cacciano. I know that was an extreme measure, but this is a strange situation.
Folks, I was reading an article the other day about Obama's deal with Cuba, and it was talking in it how Obama had used secret back channels to negotiate and secure the deal that he made with Fidel Castro. It's funny to me that they don't see no collusion there, you know. Why, it's never even mentioned, never even talked about, you know, matter of fact. Actually, you know, I mean, really, can you all cut through these lies, this bull? Can you? You need to. You need to wake up, folks. All they do is vomit. They vomit garbage into each other's mouths, and then the next one vomits even worse into the next one's mouth, and this just goes on for forever and ever, okay? I never thought that it was this bad, folks. I really didn't. When you wake up, oh my God, it's the craziest feeling, like, and you finally see just how corrupt that these people really are. It's actually scary. I'm kind of like Elmo. It's a little bit scary, he said, you know. And you waking up right now is crucial, folks. It is crucial. Okay? I don't know. Well, I know exactly what's going to happen if everybody don't wake up. We're all going to be under rule of the New World Order, of the Illuminati, of the One World Religion, the One World Government. This article comes from the New York Times. It's written by Melissa Eddy and Mark Scott, June 30th, 2017. Headline is, Delete Hate Speech or Pay Up, Germany tells social media companies. That is outrageous. Can you believe that? Can you dig it? I mean, really. Berlin, social media companies operating in Germany face fines of as much as $57 million if they don't delete illegal racist or slanderous comments and posts within 24 hours under a law passed on Friday. The law enforces Germany's position as one of the most aggressive countries in the Western world at forcing companies like Facebook and Google and Twitter to crack down on hate speech and other extremist messaging their digital platforms. But the new rules have also raised questions about freedom of expression. Digital and human rights groups, as well as the companies themselves, opposed the law on the grounds that it placed limits on individuals' right to free expression. Critics also said the legislation shifted the burden of responsibility to the providers from the courts, leading to last-minute changes in its wording. Technology companies and free speech advocates argue that there is a fine line between policymakers' views on hate speech and what is considered legitimate freedom of expression, and social networks say they don't want to be forced to censor those who use their services. Silicon Valley companies also deny that they were failing to meet countries' demands to remove suspected hate speech online. Still, German authorities pressed ahead with legislation. Germany witnessed an increase in racist comments and anti-immigrant language after the arrival of the more than 1 million migrants, predominantly from Muslim countries, since 2015. And Heiko Maas, the justice minister who drew up the draft legislation, said on Friday that it ensured that the rules that currently apply offline would be equally enforceable in the digital sphere. Quote, "With this law, we put an end to the verbal law of the jungle on the internet and protect freedom of expression for all," end quote, Mr. Moss said. Quote, "We are ensuring that everyone can express their opinion freely without being insulted or threatened. That is a limitation but a prerequisite for freedom of expression," end quote, he continued. The law will take effect in October, less than a month after nationwide elections, and will apply to social media sites with more than 2 million users in Germany. It will require companies using Facebook, Twitter, and Google, which owns YouTube, to remove any comment that's illegal in Germany, such as Nazi symbols and Holocaust denial, within 24 hours of it being brought to their attention. The law allows for up to 7 days for the companies to decide to content that has been flagged as offensive, but that may not be clearly defamatory or inciting violence. Companies that persistently fail to address complaints by taking too long to delete illegal content face fines that start at 5 million euros or $5.7 million and could raise as much as 50 million euros. Every 6 months, companies will have to publicly report the number of complaints they have received and how they have handled them. In Germany, which has some of the stringent anti-hate speech laws in the Western world, a study published this year found that Facebook and Twitter had failed to meet a national target of removing 70% of online hate speech within 24 hours of being alerted to its presence. The report noted that while the two companies eventually erased almost all the illegal hate speech, Facebook managed to remove only 39% within 24 hours, as demanded by the German authorities. Twitter met the deadline by 1% of instances. YouTube fared significantly better, removing 90% of flagged content within a day of being notified. Facebook said on Friday that the company shared the German government's goal of fighting hate speech and had, quote, been working hard, end quote, to resolve the issues of illegal content. The company announced in May that it would nearly double to 700 to 7,500 the number of employees worldwide devoted to clearing its site of flagged postings. It would also be trying to improve the processes by which users report problems, a spokesperson said. Twitter denied a comment while Google did not immediately respond to a request to comment. The standoff between tech companies and politicians is most acute in Europe, which freedom of expression rights are less comprehensive than in the United States, and where policymakers have often been bristled at Silicon Valley dominance of people's digital lives, but advocacy groups in Europe have raised concerns over the new German law. Mirko Holman and Alexander Perrant of the Global Public Policy Institute in Berlin criticized the legislation as, quote, misguided, end quote, for placing too much responsibility for deciding that what constitutes unlawful content in the hands of social media providers. Quote, setting the rules of the digital public, including identification of the lawful and what is not, should not be left to private companies, end quote, they wrote. Even in the United States, Facebook and Google have taken steps to limit the spread of extremist messaging online and to prevent, quote, fake news, end quote, from circulating. That includes using artificial intelligence to remove potentially extremist material automatically and banning news sites believed to spread fake news or misleading reports for making money through the company's digital advertising programs. You see, folks, they're gonna try to put folks like me, like Drudge, like Breitbart, like InfoWars. They're going to try to put us out of business, which I'm not really in business, to tell you the truth, but hey, this is the alternative media, okay? This is what you got, and I suggest that you fall in and support it, because this is the most honest media that you will ever have. I'm running way late. I got about 16 minutes left in this episode, so I'm going to hurry. Stocks in mostly higher to book best half-year gains in years. U.S. stocks closed modestly higher Friday after trimming gains in the few last minutes of trading, but steep losses in technology and healthcare stocks early in the week resulted in poor weekly performances for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. The S&P 500 rose 3.71 points, or 0.2%, to 2,423.41, but ended the week 0.6% lower. Over the month, the large cap index gained 0.5% and advanced by 2.6%. Dow Jones was up 0.29%, advanced 62.60 points, or 0.3%, to 21,349.63, ending the week 0.2% lower. The blue chip index gained 1.6% over the month, 3.3% over the quarter, and 8% over the first half of the year. NASDAQ was down 0.06%, reversed earlier gains to close 3.93, or 0.1% lower at 6,140.42. The tech-heavy index booked a 2% weekly and 0.9% monthly loss after recent sell-offs in technology stocks. Among biggest gainers this week, Nike was up 10.96%, rallied 11.6%, much of the gains coming on Friday. That article is from MarketWatch.com, written by Honora Mamudova, Mahmudova, Mamudova. I can't pronounce names. I'm horrible. I really apologize. But yeah, like, you can see where the economy's doing better in some areas. You can definitely see that. White House spokeswoman, Chicago crime driven by morality, CNN Politics by Jeremy Diamond and Bunny Cap. White House Deputy Press Secretaries, there's a video I'll play here. Did it ever load? I'll give it a second here. What I don't get to today, I will come
Mayor
back
Emanuel,
this evening.
unfortunately, as you know,
and
Chicago
do another
is the
show
second
for y'all.
deadliest city in America. On multiple occasions, President Trump has tweeted that if you can't handle the situation, you need to ask for help and he will give it to you. I know that you are now pushing to hire more police officers, but some are asking, why didn't you do that sooner?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, we have actually added officers, and we're also getting kids, guns, and drugs off the street. And I know that the Wall Street Journal noted a recent story about the progress that's been made in exactly doing what we're supposed to do, which is cramp down on the shootings. And actually, this year, we're down 14% on shootings. In the toughest neighborhoods on the south and west side, where this is predominant, the gun violence, we're actually seeing more dramatic reductions in that effort. So in fact, we're making that type of progress.
We've got about 11 minutes left. This article comes from the New York Times, written by Adam Nassiter, June 30th, 2017. French puzzle over Macron as their new president gathers up Paris. My bad. Paris. Is he Machiavelli, Bonaparte, or degranage. Emmanuel Macron wrote a thesis about the first is often compared to the second and frequently cites the third. The parlor game playing out in the French media as France tries to figure out its new president demonstrates one thing: Macron has already concentrated all the power nearly by default. He rarely speaks to the press, limits public appearances, and has helped candidates who support his agenda win a majority in the National Assembly. Mr. Macron insists that his intensive assembling of the tools of power is not an end in itself, and the sense of direction, energy, and renewal has been welcomed by French citizens who have longed for greater authority in Paris after the weak presidency of his predecessor, Francis Hollande. But it has also led some critics to accuse Mr. Macron of, quote, authoritarian, end quote, tendencies. A weekly magazine cover called him, quote, Jupiter, end quote. The hyperbole has been widely mocked, but few doubt that Mr. Macron has assumed the role of master string puller, operating a political planet he has created for himself. France's rigid labor code, which Mr. Macron says kills jobs, will be revamped by decree, largely repassing Parliament. Much of the anti-terrorism state of emergency is in force since the November 2015 terrorist attacks, and opposed by civil liberty advocates, will be permanently enshrined in law. Such quick, bold steps have begun to sow questioning, even unease. The latest demonstration of what some of the characteristics of Napoleon style was Macron's announcement that he would address both houses of Parliament in the regal setting of Versailles on Monday. Billed as a kind of French state in the national address, the move is unknown in the Fifth Republic outside moments of severe crisis. Yet the choice of typical of Macron, even if the only direct president, goes back to the mid-19th century presidency of Napoleon's nephew, Louis Napoleon. It would be his show alone, without a intermediary of the press. He has given one newspaper interview since his election on May 7th, while upstaging his own prime minister, backed solely by the gold and mirrors of Versailles, and facing solo 925 lawmakers, many obliged to him. Quote, it's a signal, an affirmation that he is the country's ultimate pilot, end quote, said Gilles Savary, a veteran socialist politician recently defended in his parliamentary re-election bid by one of Mr. Macron's novice candidates. The man not afraid of inviting President Trump, deeply unpopular all over Europe, but Bastille Day can afford to get crosswise temporary, at least with public opinion. Quote, 3 transgressions in one day, end quote, the newspaper Le Monde said in an in an editorial on Mr. Macron on Thursday referring to Brussels. Mr. Trump's invitation and Mr. Macron's refusal to grant a tradition in Bastille Day interview. An aide told Le Monde that the president's, quote, complex thoughts, end quote, did not lend themselves to mere news interviews. The joke is now on those who mock the title of Mr. Macron's campaign book, quote, Revolution, end quote, when it appeared last fall. Quote, it's a very personalized way of wielding power, very Bonapartistic, end quote, Mr. Savary said. Quote, here we are with the first consul, end quote, who continued, allowing the Napoleon's final stepping stone before the empire. Quote, there's the prodigious ease of movement. He's permanently taking the initiative, end quote. And that is how Mr. Macron is exercising power, floating above the institutions beneath him and advancing a government project that will all about concentrating authority both in form and substance. It is direct echo of Napoleonic tactic of keeping opponents off balance by always being on the offensive. Power in France is flowing back to the center. Mr. Macron, quote, it is him that administers, end quote, Mr. Savary said, quote, it's hyper-centralized. Aides that say the legislating of ordinance while rewriting the labor code speeds up the process. The government is spending the summer consulting with various trade unions, but there are no illusions about the ultimate decider. Mr. Macron, as one of the union leaders, quoted as saying, you might pick from the menu, but you can't choose the dish outside it. The most contentious item, a move to strictly limit payouts from labor boards to fired workers, appeared to be off limits for discussion. Employers want it because they say large potential amendments are hindrance to their hiring. That's about half of that article. That pretty much gives you the general idea. Folks, I broke the record this morning. I went for 3 hours. I can't believe it. I am killed. Like I said, I sure didn't sleep much last night, no way. And yeah. But if anybody's out there listening this morning, I thank you for your attention. Again, pray for the broadcast. Pray for Sharon Timberlake. They're looking for her to pass, I think. She's a good person, and she needs our prayers and our support, and so does her family. Support our broadcast. Share our links. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your granny. Tell your daddy. Tell your uncle. Tell your papa. Tell your brother. Tell your sister. Tell them to tune into the Alex Morgan Show. The only show that is not a show. Okay? This ain't no WWE crazy Hollywood Hogan, NWO, Wolfpack, WrestleMania main event BS, okay? This is real life. And we have the belt. We are the champions. We are the sleeping giant. We are the resistance. And I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for your attention. God bless. I hope you have a great day, and see y'all real soon. I even forgot about that.